This is a quick explanation of what AP Chem students need to be doing in the lab tomorrow. Um, in front of you is the lab that we looked at last class. One of the differences here is going to be a different solution, not necessarily the green dye. We will not have rubbing alcohol. We have 3 concentrations of saltwater solution. What you're going to do is a very similar procedure to this, and I would recommend, again, making sure with a toothpick to get a good spot on your chromatography paper. If you don't get a good spot, sometimes it's hard to see all the colors. It does mention here as well, as we look further down in the lab, to make sure to bend the piece of the paper. Sometimes even taping it to the sides is a good idea as well. But what you're going to have is 6 trials. You're going to have 2 different dyes in 0.5% NaCl, 2% NaCl, and 8% NaCl solution. What you'll have to do is let that solvent soak up, and at some point prior to when it is at the top, you're going to remove that strip, and you're going to draw a pencil line where the solvent stopped. That's referred to as the solvent front. It does take time for the paper to dry, and then you are going to measure the distance in millimeters from where your pencil line started to where the solvent went, and then to each color. Now, if you want to do the bottom, you can. If you want to do from the center, as long as you're consistent. Recall last class I even mentioned that you could circle your blobs of color to help out. Again, you will have a data table that will give us how far did the solvent travel, and then within your 2 colors, you're going to have another end here, because each dye that you have is a combination of 2 colors. There will be some of you having a blue dye that's 2 different blues, or a red dye that's 2 different reds. So make sure to mark that appropriately. It's common to note how long it took for the solvent to travel, especially when we're comparing the 2% to the 0.5% to the 8%. I'm not too concerned about the time it took to dry, but that's just giving you an idea that this lab will take a bit of time. When you have all 6 pieces of paper dried, I want a picture of all of them in a row to import onto your lab report. Again, you can see how to calculate the rate of flow for these. Now, you don't have these discussion questions. Instead, what you have is your lab report. So again, recap results and explain how they're able to separate, along with these other questions, and following up with AP questions as well. The lab itself, again, will take probably about 25 minutes to get started, get all your paper in, get it soaked up, another 20 minutes or so to let it dry, and then you have to make your measurements and clean up. After that, feel free to work on the lab report, and you can always email me if you have any questions.